in the previous video, I talked about, the limitations you have, really, if you're giving up reach. And understand, I have the same limitations when I'm dealing with people who are bigger than me. So I have the same problem that everybody else has. So the things I do, aside from getting people comfortable with the idea of understanding that, their hands are still long enough and their arms are still long enough where they can protect themselves, is getting people also used to the idea of getting offline as they move in. In other words, you don't want to be hanging out here. Once you know you're in the fight, you're in the fight. And so you want to move in and you want to cut angles and get on them before they get on you. The problem is, again, if you're standing right in front and you're coming in right where all of my reach advantage is, that's going to be a problem for you. So what you really want to do is you want to get into the habit of stepping offline. So one of the things I have people do is learning first how to step offline in both directions, but not just stepping offline, but stepping in on an angle. So if I'm going to use this line as an example, I don't want to just step offline like this, because all I'm doing is moving to the side and they're not really gaining penetration, and it allows them time to catch up. So I have them stepping on these 45-degree angles, and it doesn't have to be big, and it's going to vary depending on how the person is moving. But what you don't want to do in most cases is step so far that you give them time to make the adjustment. Remember, we're talking about ending a fight as quickly as possible with somebody who, if you've already tried to talk them off the ledge and they decide they still want to try to harm you, you're going to have to go for it. So I have people stepping offline, so just step to the side. And as he's stepping offline, just protect your head with him. He's protecting himself as he's stepping offline. As he's going and he's wailing on me, he continues to feel himself move offline depending on what he's feeling me do. I see a lot of times people do this stuff and they show these techniques online, and they either move too far and never explain that what they're doing is a demonstration, so they're moving far because they want you to see what's really going on, or they're so caught up into the technique that they're not realizing that what you really want to do is you want to learn to deal with motion. Technique comes and goes, but what I'm doing is dealing with motion. This is why I don't get wrapped around the axle over whether it's a hook punch, whether it's a straight jab, whatever. A guy moving his hand and his body toward me is a guy moving his hand and his body toward me. I assume if I'm already in the fight, they're trying to hit me. So if he's moving in on me, I'm already getting offline some kind of way, and I'm moving in as I'm protecting my head and clearing their hands. I'm also moving in to end the fight. I'm moving to hit. In everything I do, I move to strike, and I strike to take people off the planet if necessary. I'm not playing games. If he's moving in, I just clear my hands. If he's moving in on me, now I got to deal with the fact that every time I do something, he's not only clearing my hands and he's kind of using his elbows. He's got a lot of skill, so he's using his elbows. But what he's doing is he's clearing and he's hitting immediately. He's not giving me time to get back into the fight. And he's staying on me to not create space that puts him back to where he was, which was the reason why he moved in the first place, and that is to take away my reach advantage. So as he's clearing things, as he's moving in and just hitting, as he's stepping offline, what he's doing is he's feeling also what's going on with my body. So one of the things that actually separates Warrior Flow from a lot of other systems is we do have technique. I'm not going to get too wrapped around the axle of technique in this video per se, but the reality is the technique varies based on what we are perceiving. In other words, I feel where his hands are. People say, well, you can block the arm and do this. Okay, well, how did you block the arm in the first place? Okay, so you could feel and you knew where their hand was. And if you know that, why then are you dealing with their hands more than what is necessary when all you want to do is get past all that nonsense and hit them? In other words, I'm always trying to clear people's hands on the way in as quickly as possible and hit them and punch a hole in them and end it right there. If I can end it with one shot, I'll end it with one shot. If I can end it with 15 shots, I'll do whatever I gotta do. And I'll just keep hitting them till they stop. The point is, as he's clearing my hands and he's hitting, he's forcing me to have to deal with what he's doing. When I'm throwing my hands, he doesn't know what I'm gonna do. If I'm even throwing a hook punch, which I really don't want to do, I'm going to get lit up because he can feel me doing that. And you can feel things within proximity of your body, contrary to popular belief. And this is one of the reasons why when people do jujitsu and those arts like that, because they're getting that feedback, that immediate neural feedback, this is the reason why they're able to do a lot of the things they're doing, is because 99% of how jujitsu works is not through the technique. It's the fact that people feel what other people are trying to do or doing, and they're recognizing the pattern in their movement or their motion soon enough to do something about it. Okay, so now what I'm going to get into, I'm going to show some technique stuff. And these are the things that I do. They're very simple things. I don't get wrapped around the axle over some fancy technique. And you can extrapolate off of this of different ways in which you can clear a person's hand. So me, again, throwing a strike at him, if he frames it in his mind properly, as if no different than if he moved in on me, or what we call inverse relationships in warrior flow. By him reframing it, what it does is now it's no different if I'm throwing my arm up than if he moved in. So from that perspective, as I'm throwing this strike, and it just clears and step on fly, as he's clearing it, it's no different, than him just stepping in and clearing it. It's kind of like playing baseball where you're just waiting for the ball to come in and you're just waiting for the right moment to swing on it. And if a person could do it with a baseball bat, against a ball that's 2.5 inches wide, in the last 15 feet you can't even see the ball, then it's got to be a lot easier here. The other thing is, as he's hitting my arm down in kind of a circular fashion, what's going on is, instead of him just hitting my arm, what he's doing is he's hitting with enough force to push down on the arm and strike down on the arm that it makes it almost virtually impossible for me to lift my arm. And like I said, in other videos, unless I'm like the son of Krypton. In other words, just roll your hands forward, right? As he's rolling his hands forward, use the heels of your hands a little more. As he's rolling his hands forward, we're just showing this, using the heels of his hands. As he's coming down on my arm, he's now coming down with these blades or these palm strikes. And so it's kind of like if you're doing dips in the gym, when you're pushing down, you're not pushing the earth away, you're pushing you away. Or if you're doing push-ups, you don't push the ground away, unless you're the son of Krypton, right? You're pushing you away. So what he's doing is, as he's striking down, unless, I have crazy strength, just put your hand on top and push down. As I resist, I don't have enough leverage in my arms unless I'm able to lift his whole body times velocity, doing shoulder flies. So it's just not possible. What he's also doing is he's making sure that he's hitting my hands down as he's clearing them. It makes it harder for me to get my hands back into the fight, and it allows him to gain penetration on me while getting offline at the same time. So even if he's using this, hammer fist, and I'm trying to do stuff, and he's just hammering my arms, it puts me in a bad situation, because in warrior flow, we deal with people's arms by exception, not as a rule. And what do we mean by that? If I can get past your hands with little to no contact and punch you in your throat, that's what I'm going to do. If I have to redirect it, even with a little bit of force, that's what I'll do. And if I have to deal with your hands where I have no choice, because maybe it's not realistic to think you can always get completely out of the way of something, I have every intention of shattering your arm. In other words, as he's hitting my arm, and it hurts when he's doing this too, but I'm turning sideways so you can see what's really going on. As he's hitting my hands out of the way, he has every intention of breaking every bone in my arm. Because here's the deal, when your hands are no different than your head as a target, you're safe nowhere. So when he's doing that, because he's looking at my arms as every bit as much a target as my head or my throat or my body or somewhere in the torso, I'm safe nowhere unless I know how to deal with that. So as he's entering, he can do all kinds of ways. And if I try to turn on him, I got to deal with it still. Now, and I've shown this in other videos where, one of the things that Grandmaster Perkins used to do, and you see this a lot even on different videos, a lot of people do this, so this is not like some magical technique of people covering their heads and bringing their arms up on the way in. One of the things, though, I do see that I caution you on is, I see a lot of times when people do it, their arms are very stiff or their hands are very stiff. Now, if you're just showing that as a demonstration so people can see, yes, you're really doing it, that's fine, but you need to let people know, that you're doing that, for instructional purposes. Otherwise, people get the wrong idea thinking that their arms are supposed to be like they're doing a robot or something. So when I bring my hands up, when I bring my hands up, I'm just bringing my arm up My arm is relatively relaxed, which is if you're trying to hit, so I can do stuff like that if I got to grab or whatever the case may be. But more importantly, with a microsecond, just bring the arm up there to protect the head. For the microsecond he needs to get that arm up to protect his head, that's all he really needs to do, and then he just continues on and just clobbers me. But if you're going to do that technique, you want to start practicing that and start practicing that moving against people. He can also move in the same way on the inside if he feels he has no choice. Because if I'm windmilling on him and he needs to protect his head, he can also do that on the inside. Or if he feels inclined, he'll try to shatter my arm. Usually when I hit people on the arm, I usually hit them in the middle, somewhere in here, but I'm not hitting just to hit it away. I'm hitting it in a downward torquing motion because I'm trying to pop their arm out of the socket plus break their arm. Or I hit them right in here in the bicep, but again in a downward torquing motion because I'm also trying to pop their shoulder out of the socket because I don't want them to swing on me anymore. Plus it hurts like hell. So there are different things you can do as you're entering on people. But the main thing is, get offline as you're entering. Have your hands in a position where you can protect your head. And if you have to deal with their hands and you feel you have no choice, you hit their arms with everything. You should have every intention of crushing every bone. And practicing that way, whether you're doing it on a bag, on a bob or whatever, or going slowly with a training partner, so you build up also the mindset that as you're coming in, you have the ruthless intention. One of the things that I do see, it's not talked about enough, when I see it in a lot of different videos, people show techniques, and part of the reason why a lot of people don't think some of those techniques work is because the way it's presented, they're not presenting it from the perspective of the level of ruthlessness that you need to have to make certain techniques work. And I hear people say things like, well, what if a guy's going for your legs? You act like you're going for the legs, and me, I will hit you with everything I don't care. I will hit you with my elbow. I will uppercut you in the throat. I will elbow you in the head. I will drop that knee right into you if you get low enough. In other words, anything I do, I'm going to hit you with everything I got, with every intention of ending it for you. Because the idea of you trying to take me to the ground has the potential of me being killed. So I assume it's an assassination attempt on my life. I'm going to respond accordingly. In the next one, I'm just going to show some stuff of how you can use your feet. It's something you got to obviously practice, but how you can use your feet to also help you close distance on somebody who has greater reach than you.